You ready for another story? It's another Naughty Little Sister story. It's from a different book. My Naughty Little Sister's Friends. Now this is a story that I haven't read in school before, and I haven't read it for a very long time. In fact, I don't think I've read this one since maybe I was a little girl. And I was so pleased to find it today because it's lovely. It's called My Naughty Little Sister is Very Sorry. A long time ago, when I was a little girl with a naughty little sister, a cross lady lived in our road. This cross lady was called Mrs. Locke, and she didn't like children. Mrs. Locke didn't like children at all, and if she saw a boy or girl stopping by her front gate, she would tap on her window at them and say, "Don't hang about here," in a very grumbly way. Wasn't that a cross thing to do? I will tell you why Mrs. Locke was so cross. It was because she had a very beautiful garden outside her front door, and once some boys had been playing football on the roadway, and the ball had bounced into her garden and broken down a beautiful rose tree. So when Mrs. Locke saw children by her gate, she thought they were going to start playing with footballs and damage her garden, and she sent them away. Sometimes she came right out of the house and down the gate and said, "Go and play in the park. The roadway is no place for games." And she would look so fierce and cross that the children would hurry away at once. There was another reason too why Mrs. Locke was so cross. You see, she had a beautiful, smoky-looking cat. And one day, a nasty child had thrown a stone at the cat and hurt his poor leg. So if Mrs. Locke saw a boy or girl stroking her smoky-looking cat, she would say, "Don't you meddle with that cat now." What a cross lady she was. But I suppose you couldn't really blame her. It isn't nice to have your rose trees broken. And it's very, very bad to have your poor cat injured, isn't it? Well now, one bright sunshiny morning, my naughty little sister went out for a little walk down the road all by herself. It was only a very small walk, just as far as the lamppost at the corner of the road and back again. But my little sister was pretending that it was a very long walk. She was pretending that she was a shopping lady, stopping at all the hedges and gateways and saying that they were shops. My little sister had a lovely game all by herself, being a shopping lady. It was a very nice day, and she had a little cane shopping bag, just like our mother's, and a little old purse full of beads for pennies. First, my little sister stopped at a hedge and said, "I'll have a nice cabbage today, please." Then she picked a leaf and pretended it was a cabbage, and she put it carefully into her basket. And she took 2 beads out of her purse and left them under the hedge to pay for it. Then she went on until she came to a wall. There were 2 little round stones by the wall, so she pretended that they were eggs, and she bought them too. Then she found a piece of red flower pot, which made nice meat for her pretend dinner. Oh, she had a lovely game. Just as she arrived at Mrs. Locke's gate, the big, smoky-looking cat jumped up onto it and began to purr and purr. And as he purred, his big feathery tail went all curly and twisty, and he looked very beautiful. My sister stopped to look at him. When the big smoky-looking cat saw my sister looking at him, he opened his mouth and showed her all his sharp little teeth. Then he stretched out his curly pink tongue and began to lick one of his legs, and he licked and licked. My little sister was very pleased to see such a nice cat, and she stood tippy-toed and touched him. And when she did this, he stopped licking and began to purr again. He was nice and warm and furry, so she stroked him very gently towards his tail, because Mother had told us that cats don't like being stroked the other way. "Dear kitty, nice animal," she said to him. There she is, stroking the lovely cat on the gate. Now, as my sister was such a little girl, Mrs. Locke didn't see her standing by the gate, so she didn't say go away to her. And my sister had a long talk with the smoky-looking cat. She told him that she was a shopping lady. "I have bought lots of things," she said. "I can't think of anything else." When she said this, the cat got up suddenly and jumped right off the gate, back into Mrs. Locke's garden, and as he jumped, the gate opened wide. "Meow," he said. "Meow," like that. My naughty little sister looked through the gate, and she saw the smoky cat going up the path. She saw all the pretty tulip flowers and the wallflowers growing on each side. And do you know what she said? She said, "That was very kind of you, Kitty. Now I can buy a nice cup to drink my milk out of." And she walked into Mrs. Locke's garden. Mrs. Locke's tulip flowers were all different colours: red, yellow, pink and white. And you know that tulip flowers look rather like cups, don't you? "I'll have a yellow cup, please," my naughty sister said. "Here's the money, Kitty." And she picked a yellow tulip head and put it in her basket. The smoky-looking cat walked round and round her legs, and his long prickly tail waved, and he said "Prrrr" to my little sister, who was pretending to be a shopping lady. And Mrs. Locke saw her from the window. Mrs. Locke was cross. She tapped hard at the glass window, and my naughty little sister saw her, and then she remembered that she wasn't really a shopping lady. She remembered that she was a little girl. She remembered that it was naughty to pick flowers that didn't belong to you. And of course, you know what she did. Yes, she ran away. Through the gate, down the road to our house, while Mrs. Locke tapped and tapped, and the smoky cat stood still in surprise. My little sister ran straight indoors and ran straight upstairs and hid herself under her bed. Mrs. Locke came down the road after her, and when she saw my little sister run into the house, she came and knocked at the door and told our mother all about my little sister's bad behaviour. There's my little sister running away from Mrs. Locke, running back to our house. My mother was very sorry to hear that my sister had picked one of Mrs. Locke's tulips. And when Mrs. Locke had gone, our mother went upstairs and peeped under the bed. You see, she knew just where her naughty little girl would be. "Come out," Mother said in a kind voice, because she knew my little sister was ashamed of herself, and my little sister came out very slowly and stood by the side of her bed and looked very sad. But Mother was so nice that my sister told her all about the pretending game and the kitty cat. And Mother explained to her that you have to think even when you're pretending hard and not do naughty things by mistake. Then she told my sister all about why Mrs. Locke was cross, about her rose tree, and the nasty thing that had happened to the smoky looking cat. And my sister was very, very sorry. When Mother went downstairs again, my sister had a good idea. She went to her toy box and she found the beautiful card that our granny had sent her for her birthday. It had a pretty picture of a kitty cat and a bunch of roses on it. It was the nicest card my sister had ever had, but she thought she would give it to Mrs. Locke to show her that she was sorry. She didn't say a word to anyone. She went out very quietly down the road to Mrs. Locke's gate. When she got there, my little sister went inside the gate and up the path. The smoky looking cat came round the side of the house to meet her, but she didn't stop to stroke him. No, she went up to Mrs. Locke's front door and rattled the letterbox. Then she pushed the postcard inside. She put her mouth close to the letterbox and shouted, "I am so sorry I took your flower, Mrs. Locke. I am very, very sorry. I have brought you my best postcard for a present." And then she ran away again. Only this time, Mrs. Locke didn't tap the glass. The very next time my little sister went by Mrs. Locke's gate, there was Mrs. Locke herself, pulling weeds out of the pathway. And there was the smoky-looking cat sitting on the gatepost. When the cat saw my little sister, he jumped down from the gatepost and said "Prrrr" to her and rubbed round and round her legs. Then Mrs. Locke stood up very straight and looked over the gate at my little sister. Mrs. Locke said, "Thank you for the card." All the time, the smoky-coloured cat was purring and purring round and round my little sister's legs. And Mrs. Locke said, "My cat likes you. His name is Tibbles. Would you like to stroke him?" And my sister did stroke him. And after that, she stroked him every time she went past Mrs. Locke's gate and found him sitting there in the sunshine. And although Mrs. Locke often saw her stroking him, she never said, "Don't you meddle with my cat," to her. And when Christmas time came, Mrs. Locke sent my sister a card with robins and holly and shiny glittery stuff on it. And that was even more lovely than the cat postcard. So there's an idea that you could do maybe in your garden. You could go shopping, see if you can find some maybe buttons or little stones for pennies, and you could go round and see what things are in your garden that you could find. But don't be picking any flowers. See you later.